Hello there, everybody, and welcome to another Friday night. Just remember that the show, after the show, it's directed onto YouTube and my YouTube channel, Des Taylor's Angling World, and you can see it from ever and a day from then on in. So, which is something that we had to do because. Facebook decided that after 3 weeks it would be taken off, so it wasn't available to anybody else. So there we go. So great people coming on. I can see members coming on now, so that's great. I'd just like to thank, before we go on, I'd like to thank Lawrence Breakspear for coming up for a great idea. A few weeks ago, he said to me, he said, Des, I'd love to ask members for different fish, the species they've caught over the years. And, we'll do a different species every week. And, they haven't got to be big. They haven't got to, they can be small, they can be whatever, and see if we can involve a few people. And I said, by all means. And we've tried it. We've seen the tench, um, we've seen carp now, and it's been such a great success. I'd like to thank Lol on behalf of all the group members because so many people have been coming on. It's been unbelievable. It really has. In fact, I've had to pin Lawrence's post on the top because there's been that so many coming through. It's lost the original idea of the thread who brought it on. So that's been a great, a real good idea. Thanks, Lol, for that. Involving lots of members that have never posted before. It really has been good. Okay, I'd like just to get the one negative over. I did mention that I was going to talk a detail about an article that had come out in a magazine by a certain chap and about otters. Um, and then I decided that, first of all, I was disappointed that the magazine actually gave space to the article because it was the most ill-informed article on otters that I'd ever read. And I've read a few. And it was really, really bad. The magazine reckoned there were some great points on it. I didn't think there was hardly any points at all. In fact, I don't think there was any good points on behalf of the anglers. And I thought the article did a great deal of harm to people like me. And there are thousands of me that know the damage they've done, but all cancelled out by the likes of that. But there you go. So I decided not to talk about it because, one, as I said, I don't like the chap who wrote it. It annoys me to think he even had the space. But so it's over. I don't want to talk about it. It's a great shame that people on our side, anglers, talk that way about the fish as though hey, just something that happens. And if there's another million otters next year, well, so be it. If we run out of fish, then so be it. I just find it crazy. But there you go. But the thing is, at the end of the day, just to go fishing, and that's what I decided to do. I went fishing instead of getting wound up by it. I'm just going fishing, and there you go. So let's talk about this week, which has been a real good week for me. The weather has been awful. I mean, I've just walked from the house over to the Tattle Den, and it really is awful. It's cold, it's raining, and it's cold rain. It's an awful night to be out there. I'm certainly glad I'm not out there, but I'm no doubt there's a lot of people out there, and no doubt there's members out there. I'm just wondering if Phil is out there on carping. I hope he isn't. But I've had a great time. Steve Greenaway has given me the opportunity to fish a lake, and we've I think I've had something like 12 threes in the last couple of weeks, which has been absolutely phenomenal. I've really enjoyed it, and a load of other twos and singles and whatever. It's been fantastic, fantastic fun. Really saved me bacon, really. It really has. In terms of it could have been a real. People are struggling to catch fish, of all sorts. But I've got a couple of good mates, and the other one was Andrew Taylor, who's got this marvelous little trout fishery, and I went up there and I had 14 fish, and the best was about 5, 6, maybe even £7, but it was fantastic fishing. I had them on a number of different ways. I had intermediate. I had them on the bung on the top. I had them on nymphs. It was really good fun, and considering, when I see people on here struggling so much for just to get a fish, and trying to save a blank. I've really enjoyed a good time, and I'm grateful to friends for that. That's for sure. And there's a photo of Steve. Steve's been fishing for the roach and perch on. I've been fishing on live baits. He's been fishing on worms and maggots, and he's had some nice fish as well. That was one while he was fishing for roach actually, but another nice fish. And there's the best. The photo in the top right hand corner is the best perch fisher we got, and that ain't Steve, that's Stella, the bull terrier. So there you go. Great fun, great times, and although the weather is awful, I'm hoping in the next couple of days to get up there again and get a few more perch under the belt. It's one of my favourite species, and I'm enjoying a great time. Okay, let's get to the Angling Times. In the Angling Times this week, I saw that photo, big barbel take on creature bait, which is like a creature on the on jigging, like a crayfish type creature. And some people would think, God, that's unusual, to catch a barbel on lures. And yet, years ago, I remember in the Anglers Mail, in the Angling Times, in the close season, when there was a close season everywhere, that people used to. There was salmon fishing. Generally, I don't think there were records every time. There was a lot of well, there weren't photos. There was salmon anglers that said they caught a 19, 20-pound salmon. They never showed the photos, and it was always estimated. But they did catch some very, very big barbel on tobies and whatever when they were fishing for the salmon. So it's not unusual. It's not a thing of, modern day. Certainly, Sean Pope said wasn't a record caught on a spinner in the 80s. I can't remember. I know there was a number of records supposed to be caught on tobies and whatever, but having mixed with a few salmon anglers, they're not that bothered about how accurate they weigh fish. A lot of the times it's just estimate, and I don't blame them. They want to get them back, and that's it. So. Chris Matthews, fly fishing on the Wye. He's had loads. Yeah, they do. They do. I remember a mate of mine in the old Worcestershire specimen group, Gary Summers. He fished a summer using gudgeon as dead bait for barbel, and he caught quite a lot. And believe it or not, you would have thought, wow, that's the way it's going to sort the big ones. And he didn't. He was catching the same size as he was catching on bait. So, and I remember when we used to occasionally sack barbel up in the golden days of the lower seven. We used to sack them up and to photograph, only for an hour or two till it became light. And many of the time we've opened the sack and there's been bleak and gudgeon all smashed up in the sack from where they've gurgitated it up. So they do eat. There ain't many fish that don't eat small fish. That's for certain at certain times of the year. That's for sure. The Kingfisher Club page I put on because James Furniss, the editor, was talking about how many kids now are going predator fishing, and you can see that in the Kingfisher Club page, because instead of carp and chub and tench and things like that coming on, even the dace and things like that, it tends to be a lot of predators, a few zander, pike and perch. And only the other day, I think it was the other Saturday, I was coming back through Stourbridge, and there were 4 kids, all with a little drop shot type rods and a little landing net between them, walking towards the canal. And I thought, that's great. I haven't seen that for ages. They used to be on the bike or used to have a creel and whatever, but it don't matter. It don't matter what they're going to start with. It don't matter if they start you know, with a lure or a live bait, or even you know, a little float or car fishing. It don't matter as long as they come into the sport. That's great. So it's nice to see a load of kids around. And I was talking to Adam in Bewdley Tattle, and he was saying that he's having so many kids coming in, you know, this year compared to the last few years. It has been an uprise, which I'm really glad. You know, that's good to that's good to hear. The third one I picked out was by Dominic Garbett, and he was saying they never understand anglers who pack up early, and especially with perch, and that's right. You know, at this time of year especially, you know, early morning can be very good in the summer for perch, but in the winter, autumn, the winter, just on dark, I tend to find that between 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and 3 o'clock tends to be really good. The light's just dropping off, you know, just sort of starting to even out the light. But then as it gets, the last few times, you know, with the amount of fish I've been having, just as it's gone on to dark and darkness really comes in, it's died. You know, whether they'll come back on in the night like other species, I don't know. But certainly it is worth waiting to sort of on, you know, depending on the rules of the club. But, you know, sort of it is worth, especially when perch fishing, no matter what the bait, then the time is to that sort of, that last hour is worth you just hanging on. I know the temperature's dropping, I know it's cold, but it is worth hanging on, that's for sure. Okay, let's what are we on now with the Barbel prize? Oh right, let's look at the prize. Remember, keep sending it in. Paul Holloway bought a token from Severn Valley Barbel Products, £100 bait token. He's going to buy a lot of bait for a good winner. And that's Paul Holloway from the Nature Trail has given £100 to Severn Valley for the person that sends up the winner. They'll decide. Severn Valley will decide which one's going to win it. It might not be the biggest. It might not be, you know, it's not necessarily an 18, 19, 20 from, you know, from King's Weir or from the Trent. It might be something off a smaller river altogether. I don't know. It's up to them. But you'll be the first to know. We'll put it on the show, and they'll be the winner. So that will be the Friday after the end of the season. We'll decide on that and let you know who's the winner. Okay. Next, we've got a few videos tonight, and the next one is, you know, the next one is a great favourite of a lot of people, and of course that next video is, of course, Ambrose. Almost a cult following now on his cooking videos. He does catch a few fish as well, just remember that. You know, he's out there fishing and he does catch a few fish, to say the least. You know, he comes to the Doo and he catches some nice perch and pike and whatever. You know, he sort of competes well. He catches a lot of fish, but it's also nice to see what he cooks. Let's see what he's cooking this week.
How are we doing? Just out for a few hours a day on a little club lake down at Snettisham. Everything's frozen over, so I just come down here and broke a swim out and just gonna have a go on the whip for a few hours. But been very hard fishing. I've had two very small roach up to get, and it took a long while to get them. So, but it's just nice to get out. So while I'm down here, I'm gonna have some dinner. And today I'm having something I've never cooked on a bank before or done a video of. I've got some pasta. I've just got a small tub of minced beef, some Parmesan cheese, and some bolognese sauce. So today we're having spaghetti bolognese, which is one of my favourites, and just a really simple cook. It's probably a 20-minute cook, and it's all done. And while it's cold, it's just nice to have something nice and hot. So what I'll do, I'll get set up, and we'll get some water in that pot, get that pan up, and we'll start getting things on. Right, I've got my water getting hot. Got my pan getting hot, and today I'm cooking with my Trangia triangles. I've got this one on alcohol burner and this one on gas. So we're going to get that mince in. Temperatures have dropped off again. It was sunny, now there's a bit of cloud coming over. Right, I'll get this mince browned off and we'll get the salt in and get the pasta in as well. Right, I've browned my mince off. That's done, so I'm just going to put this sauce in. This is only half a jar. Stir that in. It's been really nice down here today. The robins have been having a good feed on and the blackbirds on me maggots. Fishing's been hard, which I knew was gonna be, but I do suffer with cabin fever a little bit, and sometimes if I'm not working it's just nice to come out for a while. So I'm gonna get that pasta in as well. This pasta is very quick cook. It's only 4 minutes, and that'll give that time to warm through. Right, we'll get everything done, then we'll get dished up. Right, we're getting about there now. So my pasta's done. Just strain that off. And what I tend to do is give it a mix up, so I'm gonna put it all in the pot. Once again, done too much. A really quick one to cook, and you know I am a spaghetti bolognese fan, but definitely when it's a cold day like today, this is a nice little cook. I've got that mixed in there. Let's get some on that plate. Plateful. There we go. Bit of a mess, but there. Give it a bit more of a mix up. Some Parmesan cheese. Put a lump come out there. And there we go. Spaghetti bolognese cooked on the Trangia triangles, Trangia pan, Trangia pot. And that's all done. Right, I'm gonna get that et while it's hot, a bit more fish in, and yeah. So once again, thank you very much for watching Tight Lines and Full Bellies. Cheers.
Absolutely super yet again. In fact, I got a mate of mine that we're thinking of going to France or somewhere to go carping again, and you're thinking, I wonder how much an hour to rent Ambrose to do the cooking. He could fish, we'd pay for his fishing, he'd just do the cooking. You can imagine you'd put on a stone while you're over there, you know, but my God, the food would be incredible. Absolutely super. Well done, Ambrose. Another super video. Okay, I just mentioned my YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, then subscribe. There's lots of good stuff. Gradually, slowly but surely, we've only been sort of going just over a month, and there's a load of stuff on there, and loads more to come. And there'll be some, as soon as the weather picks up, there'll be some new stuff that we're putting together. So just go onto there, subscribe, and I don't think you'll be. It's a free channel. I don't think any of you will be disappointed. So there you go. Okay, now. A lot of people have been asking, because of these perch I've been having in this perch in a lot of venues. I mean, there's a lot of waters that hold £2 perch, and quite a few waters hold £3 perch. A lot of waters hold £1 and £2 perch, which are fantastic sport, and they do love the live bait. So what I've done tonight for my tip, what I've done is my rig, and this is my rig. Dead simple, and if you want to do things about it and sort of alter things, then by all means. But this is the one that I've used. I've used it for many years. I haven't changed it. It's one that I've used for many years. I've caught lots and lots of perch, big perch, numbers of big perch, and it's a fantastic way of fishing. It's a fantastic way of not debooking them, and this is it, right. It's a sunken float paternoster, and people say, well, why are you using something? I'm not using the float as an indicator. What I'm using the float is just to hold the bait off the bottom. So, right, we've got £8 main line, £10, something like that, main line, mono. I shove a float stop on, then I shove the float on, then I shove another float stop. All I'm bothered about where the float is set is probably 3 times the distance of where the trace is going to come up. I don't want the trace, the fish that can catch the float. So there you go. It's just the float. Say if it's 12 foot deep, I'll probably have it set something like about 7 foot deep, something like that. The bait's set so it's not far off the bottom. So what I've come down, there's a 3-way swivel. I come down to a 3-way swivel, tie the 3-way swivel on with a normal knot, whether it be a grinner knot or a clinch knot, a good knot. Then what I do is I put a 6 to 8 inch piece of fluorocarbon with a fine hook, and I'll explain the bait with the fine hook, something like a Drennan barb look, a size 6 or 8, and generally try to use a 6 wideish gape, and that's the bait is a small roach, a tiny roach about 3 inches long, something like that. Absolutely super bait. And then just hook it. When I hook it on, that's quite a heavy gauge, because that particular day when I took that's a twister. I'd actually run out of fine hooks and I had to use that. Still caught them, no problem at all. But what I do is I cut a little tiny piece, a little square of elastic band, and just put it over, and that stops the bait coming off. Even with a barbed hook, the bait can wriggle off, and there's nothing worse than reeling in and there's not a bait on, that's for sure. And it doesn't, people say, oh, that'll mask. People that say it masks the hook are people that don't use it. They say, it'll mask the hook, and they don't. Steve will tell you, I'm hooking, almost, I would say 95% of the perch that I ever take off. So that keeps the bait on. Then below the paternoster, then we'll have sort of say 18 inches, a foot of line down to a small lead, a lead that will hold the float down and hold the fish in position. What it is, it's a fixed rig, so as soon as it starts to go, I'm into it straight away. It ain't a free running rig. It'll hook them straight away. As it comes out the bobbin, as it's pulling against the lead, it'll hook them, and that's what stops them deep hooking. What I do on the bottom piece of line, as you notice, I do all the mistakes that you shouldn't do with a good knot. So when I tie a knot, I don't wet it at all. I just pull it so that it'll break easier. I put a granny knot or 2 granny knots down the thing, so if it hooks the bottom, it breaks. So I'm causing a rotten bottom in a number of, on the lead on the bottom as well. I'll then put the knot, and I'll actually almost burn it. I'm doing a fast knot without any water, so any spit on it at all. And that's it basically. All I do then, sling it out, I put it on a little bobbin. I use a billy backbiter with the small indicator on, and put it on. So that's it, and it pulls out, and it hooks the fish. And what the one thing I would say to people is the amount of people that sling a bait out, like any kind of float fishing, you sling the bait out and then put it on and then wait an hour, 2 hours or whatever. I don't. What I actually do is I will put it out, and then it could be quarter of an hour, it could be half an hour. I'll then reel it in nice and slow, check the bait's alive, but then they are, there's no problem. And then what I do is then sling it out in exactly the same spot, no problem. Well, I might sling it to a different spot, but you sling it to the same spot. And the amount of times I'm sure that falls through the water, you click it up and then it goes. You know, it literally is that it's like casting any bait, changing, twitching. You know, I don't generally twitch it, because with the lead on the bottom like that, you know, especially if it's a snaggy area where you're fishing for the perch, if you try to move it, you might snag the lead. So what I do is I literally reel it in, check everything's okay, then just sling it back out, blop, gone. And the amount of times it might be right away. I mean, Steve will tell you, if you ask Steve, the amount of times I'm waiting there half an hour, I've had nothing, then all of a sudden I just put the bobbin on, and it's literally the bobbin's been pulled out of my hand. Tony Mills, could you use a bite alarm instead of a bobbin, Des? Yes, you could. You know, I like the bobbin because it's pulling out the bobbin. You know, it's pulling out the bobbin. And the thing about bite alarms compared to a bobbin, and that's why a lot of people, that's why we use bite alarms. When you're on a carp and it goes beep and you didn't hear it, there's no problem. So what? But when you have a beep and it's pulled out and there's only one beep on a perch or a pike, he might be getting it down his neck. So when it pulls out, it goes beep, and you've got to go to it. You know, and whatever's happened, if that bobbin's dropped off, I wind down, and wind down, and see. I don't feel, oh, he's the one on, and all this. Oh, I wonder if there's one pulling. I don't. I just wind down. Oh, there ain't one on. No problem. Out again, bosh, and then away he goes. So that's about it. The small lead, I would say, is about an ounce, maybe an ounce and a half, and that's about it. As I say, the float is just for holding it up. People say, well, why don't you use it up the top? Up the top, what you get is you get the it's going like this, and it goes under a bit, and you think, oh, is that a taking? No, I don't want to know all that's going on, bobbing in there. The bobbin will sometimes go, and what I'll do is I'll try to keep the bobbin to an angle that as soon as it hits the line, it's off. I don't want the bobbin going up and then clipping off, because that's when they feel it. It's like when I fish with eels or pike. I try to get it as close as when it pulls off, it clips. So then there's only that one resistance instead of that steady resistance, then click, and then another resistance. That's it. It's dead simple to set up. And I've rarely ever, somebody said, you know, they use a three-way swivel and they get tangles. I don't know. I use sort of 10-pound fluoro, a stiff fluoro, and then I just don't get in tangles. I think the thing is, don't use too long a trace with your bait on. You know, you want to be 6 to 8 inches, something like that, and it'll be swimming. They don't swim round like people think they swim round. They don't. Any live bait, if you notice a live bait in the water, all it's doing is going up and then fluttering down. Going up and fluttering down. People think they're swimming round and round. They don't. They're doing this most of the time. And then they're fluttering down. Then they come. Bang, you got a perch. Okay, so that's my rig. That's my live bait rig. I hope that's showed you what I do. Dead simple, like anything else I do. We can't be too clever because I ain't clever enough to try it. But there you go. Okay, the zero fit. Let's go to the zero fit. Hope that catches your perch. And anybody that uses it catches it, then you know, sort of get yourself a little pole. You can get these little poles that just telescopic little poles and get yourself some, you know, the pole rigs already made up, some maggots, and then just catch yourself a few live baits, put them in the pot, and then, oh my God, brilliant, absolutely fantastic method. You know, you can, and the other thing is, I'll talk about it another day, is drop shotting with a live bait. So, or even a dead bait. Really, really incredible method. Not talked about much, but it is an incredible method. So instead of a rubber, you're using a little one of them. If you keep those baits that you've had a perch on, keep that, freeze them back and keep them for your drop shotting with a dead roach. Nothing better than when he comes, instead of being rubber. If he's a bit, shall I take it or what? And he don't take the rubber, he'll certainly talk. Yeah, walking the worm too, brilliant. But walking a little live bait, or walking a little dead bait, you know, is another way, another method. Okay, so let's get to the zero fit prize. And oh, what a fish this was! What a video! It was absolutely fun. I couldn't get a photo. I had to take a photo of the video, so that's why it's a poor photograph. But what a fantastic fish! Liam caught this. It's Wayne Earl's dad. Wayne Earl's son, Liam Earl, and they fish. It looked like a bit of a river to me, but fantastic fish. 23 pound. He played it so well. Wow, did he play it? You know, he really did play it well, and I didn't think it was going to be that big. And then when it went in the net, I thought, my God, that's a decent fish. Then when he put it up like that, you know, all of a sudden you could see it on the video that it was 23 pound easy. I think it was 23.14 or something, nearly 24. Absolutely super. As Phil Westwood says there, well done, Liam, great croc. And it was a great croc. It was a great film by his dad. His dad was just as chuffed to be him to catch it. The kid was looking, you could see the excitement of it. It was, oh my God, it was worth 5 zero fits. It really was. So your zero fits on the way, mate, and just wear it. Keep yourself warm while you catch another one, mate. Absolutely, absolutely super. Okay. The next one, let's get onto the Nature Trail by Paul. I haven't heard from Paul today. I don't know if he's watching, but he certainly watches it most weeks. I've got to see him the weekend. I'll see what he says. So there you go. Okay, Nature Trail. There you go, Nature Trail. So he's done quite a lot of filming and pictures up in Scotland. He was up there for a few days, and my recent trip to Perthshire saw us out and about at first light. The amount of red deer on and around the roads was unbelievable. The salt spreaders act as an attractant as the deer crave the sodium left behind as the ice melts. In Scotland, the number of reported traffic collisions has reached over 2,000 a year as the deer come off the hills in search of food. You know, there's a typical example of, you know, a creature that is, you know, gone to the point that it's becoming a nuisance in some ways on the what, you know, the natural life there, you know, the trees, and because you know they will eat anything. They'll get in a garden round this way and they'll eat the roses, the thorns, the lot, and they cull them, and rightly so. They need to cull them in the right number. And I think the plan of the Scottish people up there is that, you know, there's going to be thousands culled over the next few years, and there has to be thousands of those culled because of that very reasons. Because if they allow it to eat, you know, the foliage, etc., that other birds affect other things, then, you know, it's okay with nature. The deer, fine, lovely to see them, fantastic animal, etc. But once they start affecting other creatures, then you have to do something about it, I'm afraid. Or you just say sod it and let it go, which I'm not a great believer in. You know, I'm not a great believer in letting, at times, nature gets out of hand and lose control. Of course it'll come back. Of course it will come back. But if we can do something to help it, I'm sure we should. Okay. Nature Trail True Winter Survival. With the temperatures dropping to below -10 degrees, birds like this great spotted woodpecker have to work hard to survive and find food. Trees like the Scots pine provide a lifeline as they search for wood-boring beetles under the tree bark. I was up at a mate's house up in the forest today, and he was telling me about the amount of tree creepers he'd got in the trees above him in there, looking for the same sort of thing. So there you go. Okay, right. We've had another video sent by Phil Lane, and then we've got another video from Luke, both on pike. And it's lovely to see members sending things. If any of you have got ideas, you're confident enough to do it, just send it up. If it's not good enough, I'll tell you. And that's no, there's a few videos coming in that are either not quite right or whatever, but that if there's a good video and I think members can learn something from it, then there's always space on here for you. No problem at all. So make videos, send them in. And as I say, if the members can get something from it, I'll put it on. That's what this group's about. Okay, the next one is Phil Lane, and he's talking about some of the traces he uses. So thank you, Phil, for this.
Evening folks, and welcome back to Bike Light Headquarters. This evening we're going to be having a little look at my pike fishing gear. I'm hoping to get out in the next week or two, and so I've got everything set up here. Now, I primarily use 3 rigs for my pike fishing, and I'm going to talk you through those, show you how I tie them, and more importantly, talk to you a little bit about why I tie them that way. So I'm just going to grab the camera and we'll have a little look. Right, here we are with my, the 3 rigs that I do 99% of all my pike fishing with. First of all, we've got the old favourite Paternoster. Not a lot different to the Paternoster we looked at for perch fishing. We've just got a much heavier fluorocarbon, a bigger float. Some people will use wire for this up trace here. I find the heavy fluorocarbon doesn't often let me down and has done the job. We've got a 3-way swivel kicking out with a wire. Now I use the hand tieable soft strand for these sort of rigs, which I find is very, very good, and I can re-tie it if it gets kinked very, very easily. Going down to a bit of a larger weight than I would usually use. But I'd be looking to hit that as soon as I saw any movement on the float, obviously primarily for live baits. And I'm using that with a wide gape hook, either a size 2 or a size 4. That's pretty much all of my pike fishing on singles, will be one of those 2 hooks. Next, we've got our popped up deadbait rig. So this will be laying on the bottom. It's designed to be castable and to give very little resistance on the line. Again, I go to a heavy fluoro, which makes the lead slide very nicely. We've got a little bead there. Down to our trace. 2 trebles on the trace. Now, the easiest way to obviously attach those trebles is with a crimp. You can, I was taught to twist the wire back in the day, but crimping now is, if you're going to do your own, I'll just sort of show you there, these long predator crimps. That's just a little stinger there that you might put on a big lure. They give a lot more confidence. You can of course use, if you've got the Korda ones that you use for your carp fishing, they will do a very good job, but you'll probably want the 2 smaller sizes. So here you can see we've got 2 trebles on. We use a bit of, I use a bit of shrink wrap. Some people use silicone to hold them in place on the trace, because obviously for different size baits, you want to get that bottom hook right in the root to give you a bit of casting strength. Top hook nicely stretched out, so those two hooks are in play. You want to adjust the size of this wire that you've got leading up to your pop-up. Ideally, with a bigger bait than this one, you'd be wanting to stuff that inside the head or the cavity of a mackerel or something like that, to get this heavier bit up off the bottom, make it easy for the pike to take it. Although, you know, I don't think it makes a massive difference if they can see the ball, if they can't see the ball. Yeah, I always have a bit more confidence if I've jammed it out of the way. But I will use all different sizes for that as well, different pieces of foam, everything from how I use these, which are off Nerf gun bullets. The wooden ones, which are great for a smaller bait, you can jam it down inside, but they're not as buoyant as the foam ones. I find these Zig foam is brilliant as well if you've got a smaller bait. Put a whole strip of that in. And finally, we have my roving float rig, which is here. Simple, nice big float on little beads. Down to, I love these Predator weights. They will come in all different sizes, but however you want to do that, so you can adjust it. You want the float to be obviously just set perfectly each time, and then coming down on a wire trace again to either a large single like this is, or a single treble for that rig. And that's again, so ideal for live baits, ideal for a dead bait if you want to drift it out and explore a bit of an area. I'll just bring you around the other side and show you a few of the bits that I use. So these are the hook patterns that I tend to go with. Any wide gape is fantastic. If you have to use a barbless, these little tags are brilliant if you're using live baits, and well, even for dead baits too, it stops it flying off in the air. The soft strand that I use, which I think is brilliant stuff, and I use the standard Drennan 7-strand for a lot of my rigs. You can see, so these floats come in all different sizes. These huge fox ones that will pop up a whole mackerel, to these little tiny ones, which if you just use a little dace or a roach or something like that. Got the two different sizes that I'll use. That's the smallest I use for pike, which is a size 8 hook, and up to a size 4, which is about as big as I'll use for a treble. But if you are going to use trebles, you know, obviously hitting the bite early is very, very important. Having something to deal with it afterwards is important too. Now, you don't need this whole array. What I would say is you do need two things if you're going to use trebles and you're going to go pike fishing. You'll need something that can cut a wire inside a pike's mouth, and you'll need either some pliers, long nose pliers, or something like that. These ones are the Fox ones, but I really, really like these. I really rate that. And you could buy that and that for under 20 quid. That's a little clamp, it grabs the hook, and when you get good with that, honestly, it's a brilliant tool. But hopefully this will help you with your pike fishing, and the pike are at their biggest at the moment. So hopefully everybody has a good season, and we shall look forward to speaking to you soon about something different.
Thanks, Phil, for that. Lots and lots and lots of useful tips there. If I can just throw one of my tips in. A lot of people like to use floats, but I use floats all the time when I'm holding baits up, when I'm drifting, paternostering, etc. But I rarely, if ever, use a float if I can help it on a dead bait, especially a popped up bait. I ledger it, and the reason for that is, I treat them with respect. I can't see I would use a float with 45-pound braid coming down to the bait, and then a popped up bait bite with this 45-pound braid going all the way up in clear water of the winter. So what I tend to do is I ledger it, and that's carp anglers. If you were carp fishing, you wouldn't use a 45-pound line braid coming up from there up to a float, would you? You wouldn't. And I don't do it when I'm piking. I try to get the line flat on the bed, so that when they come in, they're not seeing this line popped up. Especially if you've got three dead baits or 4 dead baits out in a swim, and you've got these 4 lines going up, stuck up, just like the things they used to pop up for submarines, and the submarines do it them. So I use ledgered for my pop tub dead baits. Okay, so okay, the next one. Yeah, cheers, gents. Great, Phil. That was super tips, and it will help people, and especially with the instruments needed. That is one of the most important things. You know, anybody can hook a pike. You know, if they're about and they're taking, you know, you can be one of the biggest idiots in the world and you're going to get a take. The skill is getting that very weak fish, because although they look tough, they ain't a tough creature. And to get it back in A1 condition takes a skill guy. And it's more important. That's why I probably miss more takes than a lot of pike anglers, in terms that I'm on it and I'm winding down. I don't feel for it. I don't let it run off. I don't, let it run for 5 minutes before I hit it. I don't. I'm into it, wind into it, and I always work on the principle that, I don't know who said it years ago. I think it might have been Barry Rickards, a very good friend of mine, said, if it's a big one, he's got it in his gob. He's got the 2 hooks in his gob. If it ain't, it's a small one, I ain't bothered anyway. If it's anything under £8, £10, something like, depending on the water, it could be under 15, it could be under 20 if you're on that kind of water fishing for monsters. Then I'm not bothered if they come up. All it does is save me unhooking them. So there you go. Oh, Ben Lister currently sat behind my rods on Ethelswade. Well, Nigel Williams has fished up there a lot of times, and he fishes at night as well up there, and caught a lot of fish up there at night. I wish you the best. There's some good fish coming out there, isn't there? And night's a good time, mate. It really is. It's an underestimated time. Let us know if you catch, Ben, especially while you're on here. That'd be great, wouldn't it? Sending a photo down of a big one while on here. We'll have to have a competition, won't we? Who can catch the biggest fish while watching the live show? Who can catch the biggest carp or biggest whatever? That'd be great. Okay, the next we've got a small video, and it's a very, very, very simple tip. But my life, if you listen to it, it'll catch your fish. Okay, it's Luke giving you a simple tip, but one worth noting.
Here it comes. And there we go. It's in the net. So here we go then. Get off the mark. Lovely chunky fish. Clearly been eating well, feeding up for winter. Don't want it out of the water too long. Let's get it back. Just a quick sort of little bit from me here. If you are new to pike fishing and you're learning and you want a few tips, or you don't know where to go, you don't know who to ask, first of all, if you go to a lake or a river and there's other people fishing for pike, 100% do not be scared to ask. Don't get me wrong, sometimes people don't like to give too much information out. They don't like to give tips, tactics, secrets. In some circumstances, I understand that, but in others, I also don't. The way I see it is, fishing's a sport for everybody. Everyone should be able to enjoy it, have a good time, catch a few fish, and even the best anglers in the world, if they come to a place where they've never fished before, and they just fish off the go, they may catch a few fish, they may have a decent session, but if they speak to people that fish it regularly, locals or people already fishing it, that can be the difference between a good day and a red letter day. When I got here this morning, the first thing I did was go into the tackle shop, speak to the tackle shop owner and one of the bailiffs, and just asked them what's been working, where have fish been coming out, etc, etc. And even though I've done well on here before and I've caught fish and I continue to catch fish, I still ask those tips, because the way I see it is, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to ask the odd question, and I really advise people, if you're watching this and you're unsure, ask. The worst they can say is no, or the worst thing that can happen is they don't tell you. And yeah, hopefully you'll learn a thing or two.
Cheers for that, Luke. The amount of times I say to people about that, talking, asking, they're going to tell you to sod off, can't they? And when you walk along, any luck, mate, if especially if you're a young lad and you walk up to a guy and you say, I could do with something, when you have a pie, could you show me how to unhook it? Anything. People generally, there might be a complete and utter prat on the water that don't want to speak to you or whatever. Well, who gives a toss about him? But generally, most anglers are. I tell you what, one of the nicest things about anglers is they're normally nice people. It's one of them things that if you take up fishing, you generally ain't an idiot. You're generally a nice enough chap, and people help you. I'll always ask people, there's groundwork and there's ground bait, and groundwork catches me a lot of fish. You talk in the tackle shop, you talk to people about the water. When you get on there, you talk to people, you get on with people, you help people, you help them, they help you. And that is very, very good advice, Luke. And it was advice that I gave Luke a few years back, and now he's giving it out himself. So well done, Luke. Nice bit of advice. Okay, the question of the week. Well, this is a super prize. I showed some of the leads that KGM sent to me the other day, today, actually this morning. That the prize now is fantastic. You've got my pudding mix from Willy Worms, which is a super prize, whether you use it now, the cold weather, or keep it for spring, or even keep it for the summer. It keeps, it's dry pellets, so there's no problem. Keep it in a dry place, keep it nice and dry. There'll be no problem at all. And the other prize, super new prize, this is the second week or third week that we're running it, and that's KGM giving 50 leads, 50 leads. And the super leads, there's a selection. I put a photo up. There's a selection of heavy leads, small leads, flat leads, pear-shaped leads, all sorts of leads that that you can put in your gear. You'll have ones for have ones for pike. You'll have ones for barbel or whatever. A few bobs worth there to say the least. So a good prize, and the winner this week is a chap called Dale Bailey, and it's something that I just needed to answer, probably towards when I said at the start about the otters and things, and that was, he asks, if we carry on the way we are with our rivers, with pollution and predators, do you think in years to come there'll be any such thing as river fishing? Well, I don't think for 1 minute that we'll allow it to get that bad. I think, we'll have peaks and troughs, and we've had it in the past, but I think there'll always be decent river fishing. The thing that really upsets me is, take the Severn, for instance. We've lost so many barbel on there, and the barbel fishing is a lot worse than it used to be, right? A lot worse than it used to be. But the chub fishing has come back, and the roach, and people say, well, the chub fishing, the roach fishing, so, it doesn't matter. But how about the barbel that's been lost? Hundreds, if not thousands of barbel that's been killed by either pollution or predators. Well, let's not muck about otters. So if you've got a river that had a load of barbel and then they're eaten, but it improves the roach fishing, it's a plus for the roach, but my God, it's been a disaster for the barbel. And I always say one thing. Let me tell you something now. And there's no chance of this ever happening, but if the barbel fishing or the river fishing came back to how it used to be, not a few big fish that's being caught by certain blokes that keep going back and catching the same fish, if it ever gets back to how it used to be, river fishing, I will still never forgive what's happened to the fish that we've sacrificed now. If it comes back, you can never forgive what's actually gone on in the past, and some terrible things have happened to our fish. So, no, I don't think it'll disappear as such. I think it'll change, and people will go, I've got good chub fishing now, so I forgot. Most people have forgot about the amount of barbel. People are coming down on the river now say, well, you have the odd barbel, but there's loads of big chub. Yeah, and I say that's great, but I tell you what, if you was a £10, £12, £13 barbel from 10 years ago, you wouldn't have been so pleased if a seal come up and at you, and then the otters at you. It wouldn't be so good, would it? You know, and that's the great shame. So that's what it's highlighted for me, that you know, Kenny old Amen Des, never forgive or forget. I'll never forgive or forget the damage that's been done at the carp fisheries. If all of a sudden they could knock the fences down and, you know, the carp are all safe again, then I would still never, me personally, I got a fishery I fish, right? And there was a stream that came up from the river. It went to one place that was a well-known day ticket water, ate the lot, killed the lot in there, finished as a fishery. There was a water on top of the hill, the stream went close to, the otters went in, and this was a fact, not, oh, I wonder what killed it or whatever. They were all up on the bank, they were all ripped apart, smashed the place apart. And then the water that I fish, they started on that, and fortunately we got it together with a farmer and we netted it and we saved them. That was just one little field, a few acres with 3 waters that was totally ruined. Now whether it all comes back again is irrelevant to me. I will never forgive the Angling Trust, the EA, the Otter Trust. I will never forget any of them, that the damage they have done to our fishing. Never, ever, ever. Thanks for a great question, Dale. Okay, the second one is from Mark Robinson. And Mark's question is, from starting fishing, you've took thousands, many thousands actually, Mark, of photos of fish. What would be the one that you would pick? You know, a couple of photos that you would pick. Well, to be honest, Mark, you know, I've shown these photos before, and it would be, you know, you pick fish for certain reasons, but, you know, for me, is where I started my fishing was on a canal, catching stone loach, and never in my wildest dreams, as I sat with Stan and Keith Poole, Stan his father, catching my first loach, would I imagine that one day I would be out in South Africa catching, you know, great white up to, you know, close to 2,000 pounds, playing them on rods that, you know, can hardly bend even when I was a fit, strong bloke then, that I could hardly bend, and sort of 50-pound rods and 2,000-pound fish. Incredible, you know. So that photo there, you know, when up to the fin, you're only talking about halfway the fish. There's another half the back there towards the front of the boat, and we've landed it. We've hitched it onto one of the tie-ups on the side of the boat, and just looking at it, and you know, the tape was past me by the skipper, and I just measured the fish, and wow, you know, that was somewhere I never ever thought I'd get in my fishing. Never ever thought that I would do that, but I did. And as I've mentioned a few times, the teacher that said, this young lad, Des Taylor, will never do anything, he'll never go anywhere. Well, you got that wrong. River Fisherman said, I bet the adrenaline was pumping, Des. Oh, you cannot believe the adrenaline rush on that. The take, the screaming of the clutch. You think you've heard a clutch screaming until you've had a couple of grand great whites screaming down tired with a bait and a hook in his mouth, really upset. Then you've heard a clutch scream, and then, you know, you can't play it back. You know, you have to take the boat to the fish and make up line, and then when you get to it, so he's just down in the water below the boat, and then he screams off again. And I landed that 1 nautical mile away from where we hooked it. You know, it was on the idea of the boat. You know, the scanner. That from when we dropped the buoy on the anchor to when I landed it, it was 1 nautical mile. now that's a fight. And when somebody says a great white don't fight, then they're probably the same people as say that a 15-pound trout don't fight. They do, and that certainly did. It certainly made that night some paracetamol and a few whiskies was needed to sort my body out, that's for sure. Okay, right, next question. The next question is Ryan Paler. Do you still primer swim with maggots when live baiting? Yes, I do. Fortunately, when I've been fishing with Steve's fishing for roach and perch, etc., on the maggot and the worm, and we're fairly close together. And what I say is, Steve, just fire some over. So about every half an hour or whatever, he'll just shoot some maggots over, over to the spot that I'm around about the spot that I'm slinging my live bait. But if I wasn't fishing with Steve, yes. I mean, I'm fortunate that I'm sponsored by Willy Worm, so I literally order 2-3 pints of maggots a week that I keep in the fridge. So I've always got maggots, I've always got worms available, so I just keep firing them in, even though I'm not using them. It brings, I'm not necessarily wanting to bring the perch, I'm bringing, I say not bringing the perch, but I'm bringing the small fish and creating an environment where the perch are attacking. Sometimes you fire the maggots and you can see fish, you can see perch turning, and I don't think it's turning for the maggots. I think at times that little fish are coming in and they're hitting them, literally. Fantastic. Okay, Mike Eagles is the next question, and he's asking here, winters will soon come to an end, but what next? Well, to be honest, Mike, what next for me? There'll be there's my standard stuff that I know I'm going to do, like me carp fishing and tench fishing, etc. But then I'm like a cormorant. I'll sit on top of the fence and wait to see what's coming. There's always something new every year. I hate getting into a routine. I do this every year. I do this every year. There's certain things that I might do once a year. I love going to Rutland for a couple of days at the start, etc. But I should do a bit of trout fishing. I should do a bit of carp fishing. I should do a bit of pike and zander fishing. But also, there'll be something offered. There'll be somebody catch something and say, Des, do you fancy it? Oh, I've just caught a big rudd, and I've just got this pool nobody knows about. There's been this big rudd. I think, oh, here we go. Yeah, I'll have some of this, and it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I'll drop it and give that because I think, well, I can do that anyway. I've got that every year. I'll just shoot across to that. Sometimes it's a duffer. Sometimes a £3 rudd or £1, but it don't matter. When I went there, the excitement in the car on the morning as I'm driving over, I'm going to have a £3 or £4 rudd, but that's it. So I don't know what Paul's on about there. Don't get cold. Is that me? Don't get cold. Okay, Tim Thornton. I switch. He reckons, and rightly so, that I switch species a lot, very often. Have I got the gear ready for everything? And what makes the decisions? Well, yes, I have. I've been fortunate enough to be in the trade that many years that at the end of the day, I've got about every rod and every reel and everything from great white sharks down to dace fishing, down to grayling fishing, down to fishing a canal, whatever. I've got it all, and although it might look a shambles at times, it generally, I know, and that's the most important part. I know where everything is, and I can go to it and jump in. I can literally, on a phone call tonight, I could be getting ready tonight and travelling to that tomorrow. So yes, said what governs it? Well, what governs what I'm doing? There's a few things. I would think the main thing like now is weather. I ain't going to go carp fishing cold, rain, wind. I ain't going to go barbel fishing with snow water and ice water and 15 foot. I appreciate there's people that will go out carping tonight and will catch carp. I appreciate there's people that, there's 15 foot of ice cold water and they'll catch a barbel. I appreciate that and good luck to them. I don't want to do it. I want easier fishing than that. But I class my skill as trying to sort out some reasonable fishing. And it's the weather. The other one's boredom. I get bored with things easy, Tim. this perch fishing, by the time another month comes, I'll have had it. Don't matter if they're 3, 4, whatever, I'll have had enough of it and I'll be moving on. We were talking about it the other day, me and Steve. You can only catch so many perch, you can only catch so many roach, it's like barbel on the Trent. I think the last 3 sessions I had 25 barbel and 17 doubles. I ain't been back since. I had enough. I don't want to keep doing it, but that's the way I am, not the way everybody is. It's just the way the way I am. I get bored, so boredom moves me on as well. And then the other one is a good catch by another angler. I might hear something. I might hear it in the tackle shop. A mate might phone me or whatever, and that can shoot me off into all kinds of angle. The classic example was when I had a phone call from a mate of mine up in Scotland telling me about some monster roach, and he told me about these £3 roach and loads of twos, and he told me, and he said, "You fancy coming up?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I've just had some now, I had a couple of 2s and a 3 and I said, "Right." He said, when you come in?" I said, "Tomorrow." And literally, I think it was 2 days after he'd phoned me, I'd had a 3. I'd caught it, and it was, I don't know, 350, 400, 420 miles away, and that's the way it is. That's the way I fish, and that's so. Yeah, sometimes it can be, there's quite a few deciding factors, but the deciding factor is plenty of fish to be caught. That's the one. Okay, the next one is Freddie Ward. What mistake have I had and learned from over the years to help my fishing? And I thought about this, and I think the one thing I learned is to be a specimen hunter, because that's basically what I am. I know I love my pleasure fishing. I love catching fish of all sorts, but at heart I'm still a specimen hunter. I like better than, I wouldn't say I'm after records, because at the end of the day I write too much. I write in the Angling Times. I can't go for 2 years after a £15 tench or a £20 barbel or whatever. I can't do that, because can you imagine me write an article? This is my 18th blank. You'd certainly buy the Angling Times to read that. So I need to catch fish to write articles and to learn. You only learn from catching fish as well. You don't learn a great deal by not catching fish. But where were we? The mistake that the biggest mistake I learned ever, and I think it changed, and once I'd got that into my head, was not trying to get a quick bite all the time. And I tell people this, if you want to be a good specimen hunter, keep looking for the instant bite. It ain't always the way to catch the best fish. The match angler has got to sit there. Watch James Robbins. He's sitting there. He wants to get a bite, but he also plans to try and get perhaps a better fish later on or whatever. Me, I'm looking to get the better fish of the day. I ain't looking for an instant bite. If I've gone barbel fishing, maximum, I probably take 1 bait with me. I don't change half a dozen. I've said this many, many times. I lived on the river for virtually, sort of 150 yards down the back of the house for nigh on 30 years. And the amount of times I walked down and said to people, "Any luck, mate?" "Oh, no, this absolutely hopeless." I've tried everything, mate. I've tried sweet cool, maggots, worm, bread. Hey, Jesus Christ, how long have you been here? Oh, best part of 2 hours. I think, Christ, you only had the bait on quarter of an hour, all them baits you've had. So I learned that, and that's where the bait and weight came for me. It's a bit like the impatient, painter and decorator. He gets in. Amateurs like me, you think, "Oh, I want this done, I want to go fishing." So what do? You don't prep it right, and it ends up crap, and you've got to do it all over again anyway. So, I learned years and years ago, don't keep looking for the bite. It might get you, another fish, it might get you, but chances are it might get, it's like when people are baiting up for barbel, and they're baiting up and they're baiting up and they're baiting, they just keep feeding and feeding. And I imagine there's a barbel, he ain't quite come up the stream yet, he ain't quite got his nose down. And then all of a sudden, after 4 or 5 hours of having nothing, you crack. And what do? You put some maggots on, you sling in on a light line, the barbel then takes it and you lose it because of the light line. Or what do? The barbel's just getting ready to feed, and you hook a chub about a pound or a perch about a pound on your double maggot, and hey, you've ruined it again. So it ain't, sometimes you've got to invest your time in not trying to get a bite as soon as you can. The amount of people that sit there and go, oh God, what can I put on? And again, I'm always saying this, if that's what you want, if that's what you want to catch or whatever, but if you want to catch better than average fish or big fish, you've got to get that out your mind that I've got to save a blank. Oh, I've got to save a blank. I can't have a blank. I've got to, even if I catch a little roach like that, it doesn't matter if I ruin my swim. There's a double-figured barbel swimming around. As long as I save a blank, I could never get my head around that. But if that's what you want to save, then that will cost you dearly. You might have saved a blank, but of all those times you've saved a blank by slinging in a maggot just to catch that fish, that big that you caught 1,000 times before, and you won't remember ever in your lifetime, but you'll remember that big one that's sitting there. Yeah, Mark Goodman. Yeah, patient, slowly catch them on. I ain't very patient, Mark. I ain't patient, but I am ruthless. I know that I've got to wait if I'm going to get that better fish. Sometimes I might put that preparation in well before I cast in. But either way, that's what I learned, and very important for me. That don't keep looking for the instant bite, because it rarely comes. Okay. Ian DH, hook lengths on chub for bread and cheese, etc. Ian, I'm not being facetious here. I'm not being sarky. Whatever the height is, I'm fishing about that long. I fish about that long with some swan shot on for the crust to stick it up. It pops up about that far. And then I fish about 2 foot, 2.5 foot tail when I'm fishing cheese or bread flake. And that's it. It can be 40 foot up, it can be 2 foot up. That's what I use. I don't change the length or the whatever. I find them fairly easy to catch chub, especially in the winter. They're lovely. You're under a tree, in it goes. And they even tell you they're going to have it, don't they? You're watching the tip, and it's sort of, you're sitting there thinking, I don't know. And he goes, hello? Hello, are you watching? You sure? Yeah, straight the way around. Fantastic. And that's nothing to do with the length or whatever. That's the way I fish. It's around about 2 foot, 2.5 foot for me bread, my bread flake, and me cheese. And it's about that much with a shot, and the crust pops up about that far off the bottom. That's one of my great methods that I use. But standard all the time. Tony Mills, I was fishing for perch with a lobworm and had to stop myself from switching to maggots just for some float action. There you go, Tony. You've got to withstand that, because the amount of times people will just chat, I'll go to maggots, and then what do? The float goes under, and if that's what you want, then you've achieved it. But then you catch a perch that big, then you catch a roach that big, then you catch a roach that big, and a roach that big, and a roach that big. But in your mind, you want to catch that perch that big. You want to catch that roach halfway up your arm. That's it. You ain't going to do that rolling up, casting in, and then thinking, I wonder, I haven't had a bite yet. You've only been there 10 minutes. Settle down. Let the swim. You've got there. Let it settle in. You put your bait in. You put your float in, you're watching it float. Now settle in. Now let the fish come back. Now let them settle in and whatever. That might take 2 hours. But by constantly changing your bait, okay, if there's people around catching fish and you're in a match, then you need to do something about it. You say they've all had 10 pound and I had a bite. But the chaps that did it on the Warwickshire Avon when there was bags of barbel before the Ottolette, most of them, they would actually fish for the big fish. They would sit there. The match anglers, they'd be roach after roach after roach after roach after perch, the little thing. Then all of a sudden, the likes of Dave Adams been sitting there on a tip, been feeding hemp, got a worm on or whatever. Then all of a sudden, boom, goes round once, boom, 12 pound. Whoops, won the match. And then, as another one, another 11 pounder, he's got 23 pound in 2 fish. The other blokes have got 39 fish. 39 fish every pound they've had, and they're weighing 3 pound. depends on what you want. Depends on what you want. So there you go. Okay, let's go to Willie Worms Boyley, the winner. My page has froze. It's come open again now. Luckily, we're near the end and it's just freezing. I would imagine the weather out there is rough. We struggled to get some decent carp this week, but the winner for me, he said the weather was awful. The weather was blowing, an easterly wind, and I've done some fishing since Christmas, a lot of fishing in easterly winds, cold, wet, rainy, and hey, it don't matter about the size. He's gone and he's caught one. So well done, Tony Mills. Well done. Very close to a leather, and that's it. You know, it was the only fish of the day, and good luck. You know, you've won some boilies, and you know it don't matter about the size. You went out, you enjoyed it. No doubt you knew that it was going to rain. No doubt you knew it was going to be cold, but you still went out. You knew the fishing was going to be tough, and but you still went out. You still enjoyed it, and you caught a fish. Hey, you've won some boilies. Well done. Okay, and the Dinsmore prize. And we froze again. The Dinsmore prize. I call the Dinsmore prize because I can prize, and it's because I can. And I'll give this prize to Tony Mills. Thank you, Des. No problem. Well done, mate. Dinsmore prize because I can, and that was to Dave Armitt. And I love photos that take me there, you know. And over the years, I've had these incredible sights, and one of them is, you know, there's a chap setting some rods up, and he said, I'm sure there was a lake out there. It was earlier in the week, he put it on. Sure there was a lake out there when I started. And now the times I've done that when the mist has come down. And this week, I've been going up river to meet with Steve. And as I've been going up the river, there's been mist in the valley. And it's been magical. A cloud of mist. You know, and the amount of times I've been looking down at that, or I've been in it, and it clears. And there it is, there's the river. And there's this lovely, lovely photo that Dave's took. You know, it's on a lake, but it could have been on a river or whatever. And there's a swan coming out of the mist towards you. A magical photo. It made me thank God that I'm an angler. So well done, you've won the bank sticks, and there you go. So well done. That's it. That's my lot. Hope you've enjoyed the show. I've certainly enjoyed talking about fishing again. As I've said in the past, some people say it must be hard work. Then, you know, me fishing and talking. The hard work is preparing it. The actual presenting it is dead easy. Just talking to fishing. I can almost see you there. Hopefully. You know, watch it on YouTube if you can. It's a bigger version if you want an uglier version of me. But just enjoy it. The photo, the weather is going to be crap. Yes, it is. It's going to rain. It's going to be pretty cold. But I can guarantee you, if you dress up warm, decent clothes, you'll catch some fish, and you'll have a great time out there. So enjoy yourself. Okay, I'll catch you.